Hello, I'm Trinity Sutherland, Senior and Officer of the Black Student Union, and I welcome you, Seaholm, to the annual MLK Assembly of 2021. I'll be your host alongside Jada Turner, another senior and co-president of the Black Student Union. During these trying times, it's critical to discuss the struggles we all go through. Specifically, it's important to ask what's going on in our world at Seaholm, and most importantly, our hearts.
The purpose of today's assembly is not only to celebrate the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., but also to come together as a school to promote equity and unity, to uplift everyone because the world is really chaotic right now, and to some people, it may feel like there's no hope. So we want to remind everyone that the same positive change that MLK brought about is still possible to be made today. And lastly, to encourage reflection, compassion, and honor among students and staff. Now that you all know what the focus of this year's assembly is, we will now hear a message from our amazing principal, Mrs. Hall.
Hello, Seaholm Maples. Today it is a great pleasure to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King, a true American hero, not just for the Black community, but for all Americans. Throughout my professional and personal life, I've admired Dr. King. His commitment to peaceful protest and his determination to lead our country to live into the promise of our Declaration of Independence and Constitution revealed a powerful courage that I greatly wanted to emulate in my own individual way. As a young teacher, I eagerly read and studied with my students his speeches and writings because I admired the courage he demonstrated when he marched peacefully or sat at segregated lunch counters, knowing with certainty he would be met with foul words and physical assault and then arrest. Moreover, as an English teacher, I admired his superior skill with language and words to effect the transformation of the reality of the 1960s America into the dream of his moral convictions. The artistry, the eloquence, and the power of his oratory and his writing inspired me 40 years ago and continues to inspire me today. One phrase in particular has stayed with me as I watched events unfold over the past year. Dr. King said in his letter from Birmingham jail that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Furthermore, he asked his white fellow clergymen to avoid confusing silence with patience. For in my view, I agree with Dr. King that we cannot be silent when we see injustice. That is the power of words, both in the speaking and in the silence. Both can cause peace and both can cause destruction. The events of the last week and the events of this past year have led to some disturbing consequences resulting from both words and from silence. Last week, a mob stormed the Capitol building in which a peaceful transfer of power was being established, in which the very leaders who would be next in succession for the presidency huddled beneath desks, listening to the pounding of an angry mob at the door. What words and what silence inspired this violence? What words and what silence have we witnessed since the events? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. On May 25th, George Floyd died when a police officer knelt on his neck for over 9 minutes, despite his pleas that he could not breathe and cries from bystanders to save him. Several police officers stood by silent. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Last spring and over the summer, in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd, some BLM marches erupted into violence. Government buildings and police stations were burned and literally occupied by a violent overthrow of a mob. Some of these areas erupt in violence, looting, and destruction even now. Police officers have come under direct physical attack. Killings of police officers has risen 28% in the past year. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Would the assault last week at the Capitol have occurred had there been more words and less silence surrounding the summer's violence and lawlessness? Or was this mob emboldened by the weak words and or silence from some politicians and a media that often ignored the violence, even as lives were lost and property looted and destroyed? On August 28th, 1963, Dr. King marched on Washington and stood at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial to deliver what became known as his "I Have a Dream" speech. It is estimated that 250,000 people attended. 250,000. No violence, certainly no mob looting, destruction, and killing. Just a man and his words and a moral and ethical truth. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Today, you will be hearing the words of many of your friends, peers, and faculty. These words come from their hearts. They are also often opinions, just as my own words come from my heart and are my opinions. It is by giving voice to those words that we reach mutual understanding and accountability. Last Friday, many of you assembled into Zoom rooms to discuss recent events, and you too shared your opinions, reviewed details, discussed differences peacefully, sometimes heatedly, but seeking to understand, learning to participate in our democracy that in the end will only survive if we refuse to remain silent in the face of injustice, but without resorting to violence. Dr. King reminds us that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Hate multiplies hate. Violence multiplies violence, and toughness multiplies toughness in a descending spiral of destruction. If you hear something in this program that makes you think today, that's going to be wonderful. If you hear something in this program that makes you smile, that's even better. If you hear something in this program you disagree with, well, thank goodness. We do not live in a totalitarian state in which disagreement and freedom of speech are forbidden, even for students. Let's all choose to face that reality with our words in civil discourse in order to protect this democracy that today may look a little fragile to the world, but with reflection and with compassion and with honor, we will do our small part to ensure it endures. When this country was sorely tested during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln used his own words and actions to unite our government and our people. We must at last agree with Abraham Lincoln that when we are tested now with this unrest and upheaval, that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. Both Martin Luther King Jr. and Abraham Lincoln died for their belief that this country could and would establish justice, liberty, and freedom for all. I leave you with the question, how will you live? How will you live a life for that same faith in our country? How will you measure up to their courage and sacrifice in the ultimate gift they gave you? And now I'd like to turn our program back over to Jada and Trinity, who will lead us through both a thought-provoking and a celebratory look into what's going on in our world, in our school, and in our hearts. And I'm going to ask you right now to be patient as we go through this new normal of a program recorded on Zoom for our Martin Luther King celebration, and know that we are doing our best here to bring you a program that reflects our hearts. Trinity and Jada.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall, for that moving message. It's now time to spotlight our current Seaholm students. We will begin with a poem created by me, showing themes of unity and determination. Martin Luther King Jr., a man of equity, equality, and justice. He fought his hardest for the right thing. He put his life on the line for a better nation. He wanted the best for every one of us. He fought his hardest for the right thing. He died for a dream. He strove for freedom and justice, an equal playing field for all of us, but he died for a dream. Rosa Parks died for a dream. Stokely Carmichael died for a dream. John Lewis died for a dream. Malcolm X died for a dream. Chadwick Boseman, Kobe Bryant, Marcus Garvey, David Dinkins, Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland, Eric Gardner, George Floyd. We are all dying for a dream. A dream. MLK's dream was preached August 28, 1963. It's been 58 years, and we're still dying for his dream. During these isolating times, we've been divided. From our nation to down inside our homes, we've been disconnected for what seems like forever. The pain we've experienced, the tragedies we have seen, the misery in our hearts. At points, it can feel like we are drowning in a place of solitude. With everything that's been broadcasted, flashed on the news, popped on our social media, it's been battle after battle, rivals burning at each other's cities and tearing down communities. It's gotten to a point where it feels like there's nothing but hate in the world. We may clash, and we most definitely have our differences, but we must stand together no matter our conflicts. Why must we use fire to cause destruction in our nation when we all have a burning passion for justice in our soul? We have power within us, every single one of us. So let us use the strength of our spirit rather than using vigor and violence to suppress each other. We are neighbors, not enemies, and this victory will not be achieved until every one of us wins. So yes, it may be a long road and a long journey, but we must fight until that dream can't be dreamt no more. No more imagining, no more wishing. We must fight until victory is won. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. And now we have an excerpt from MLK's The Other America, spoken by Simone Miller.
I want to use as a title for my lecture tonight, The Other America. And I use this title because there are literally two Americas. Every city in our country has this kind of dualism, this schizophrenia, split into so many parts. And so every city ends up being two cities rather than one. There are two Americas. One America is beautiful for situation. In this America, millions of people have the milk of prosperity and the honey of equality flowing before them. This America is the habitat of millions of people who have food and material necessities for their bodies, culture and education for their minds, freedom and human dignity for their spirits. In this America, children grow up in the sunlight of opportunity. But there is another America. This other America has a daily ugliness about it that transforms the buoyancy of hope into the fatigue of despair. In this other America, men walk the streets in search for jobs that do not exist. In this other America, millions of people are forced to live in distressing housing conditions. In this other America, thousands of young people are deprived of an opportunity to get an adequate education. Every year, thousands finish high school reading at a 7th, 8th, and sometimes 9th grade level. Not because they're dumb, not because they don't have the native intelligence, but because the schools are so inadequate, so overcrowded, so devoid of quality, so segregated, if you will. Then the best of these minds cannot come out. Probably the most critical problem in the other America is the economic problem. There's so many other people in the other America who can never make ends meet before their incomes are far too low, if they have incomes, and their jobs are so devoid of quality. And so in this other America, unemployment is a reality. So the vast majority of Negroes in America find themselves perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. This has caused a great deal of bitterness. It has caused ache and anguish. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last 12 or 15 years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice and humanity. We will never solve the problem of racism until there is a recognition of the fact that racism still stands at the center of so much of our nation, and we must see racism for what it is. It is the nymph of an inferior people. It is the notion that one group has all of the knowledge, all of the insights, all of the purity, all of the work, all of the dignity, and another group is worthless, on a lower level of humanity, inferior. To put it in a philosophical language, racism is not based on some empirical generalization, which, after some studies, would come to conclusion that these people are behind because of environmental conditions. Racism is based on an ontological affirmation. It is the notion that the very being of a people is inferior. And we've got to see that this still exists in American society. And until it is removed, there will be people walking the streets of life and living in their humble dwelling feelings that they are nobody, feeling that they have no dignity, and feeling that they are not respected. The first thing that must be on the agenda of our nation is to get rid of racism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simone. That was amazing. Next, I will be singing in a video edited by Trinity. The song I will sing is called The Light That Never Fails by Andrew Day. It represents perseverance and hope.
When the cold bites your bones and gets in your heart, it can make you feel hopeless, and fear will come and steal your sun and make it dark. But don't believe you're lonely. We've all had that moment when our shoulders sink and we look back and think we should just run. But we're not born to chase the fading light. We're not born to fall and lose the fight. Never let it go. Oh no, no. I'm asking you to lift me higher than I've ever been. Hold your breath and say you're gonna come with me. We were born to follow the light that never fails. You're scared to fight, scared to climb, afraid to die. But I can be your courage and help you see that you've already won this. We all have that moment when our heads hang low. We question if we should go or turn back and run. We're not born to chase the fading light. We're not born to fall and lose the fight. Never letting go. Oh no, no. I'm asking you to lift me higher than I've ever been. Hold your breath and say you're gonna come with me. We were born to follow the light that never fails. Come along, we're set and sail, never looking back again. We're not born to chase the fading light. We're not born to fall and lose the fight. Never let it go. Oh no, no. I'm asking you to lift me higher than I've ever been. Hold your breath and say you're gonna come with me. We were born to follow the light that never fails.
Wow, what a breathtaking performance. Now we have a speech written and read by Cami McFall.
There have been many obstacles over the last year. With the pandemic, Black Lives Matter protests, and a lot of other violence against people of color as a result of our society. To say the least, this year has been tough, and that would be an understatement. This resulted in sadness of seeing my people getting killed over and over, along with the anxiety of thinking I could be next. But I put all the hardships that I faced and pulled through and found something that got me through it. I joined my friends in coming together and leading protests with our organization, Eyes to the Future. This gave me not only so much unity within my friend group, but a closer bond that I never thought could happen. But not only did I get these positive outcomes, I got unity within the community that I lived in. We had two protests, both having a population of a little over 100. And seeing people of all colors and some who I never thought would be there made me really happy and feel supported, knowing that they care not only about me, but others who can fall victim to the injustices that Black people face as a whole in this country. This experience taught me that throughout the bad times, there can be good times born from it. This was definitely a thing needed for me to thrive in such a trying year and to get my voice to be heard in a way that would honor Dr. King's legacy.
Thank you so much, Cami. That was awesome. Now, our next speaker is Connor Carlton.
Why we are equal. Hi, my name is Connor Carlton. Today, I am here to talk about equality for not just the kids of Seaholm High School, but for everyone. There are people that believe the issues of the past have faded, but by ignoring our history, we have made them worse. In the recent past, we have ignored racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, and prejudice against people with disabilities. Here at Seaholm High School, our goal is to not just spread awareness, but to be a part of the fight for equality for everyone. Today, our nation stands more divided than ever before. But with your help, we can overcome the scars of our past and look into a bright future for all. The first step is to realize that everyone has flaws and issues. Instead of making the problem worse, you can make it better. For example, if there are people struggling with depression, don't tell them to get over it. Tell them it's okay and that they make the world a better place. Instead of making fun of people with a mental disability, tell them just because they're different doesn't mean they're not smart. When you see someone with anxiety, don't tell them to cut it out. Ask them if they need help. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Thank you. Go Maples.
Thank you, Connor. Lastly, we have Chloe McKenna with some spoken word.
"2020 was an extremely difficult year. We not only were faced with a pandemic forcing us to isolate, but also to reflect on who we are as Americans and open our eyes. We stand to learn a lot from this struggle still. With dedication, we will create a safer space for students at Seaholm. Changing the norm has never been an easy task, and dedication is the most important part. For GSA, we will continue to promote compassion and facilitate understanding to the best of our ability. GSA offers a place for anyone to voice their pain and feel recognized and respected, and we will lend our support to whoever needs it. Through the painstaking work of millions of Americans in the fight for justice, which has been ongoing for longer than many people care to admit, it's clear how much we need each other. We need to support each other, we need to understand each other, and we need to work for what our community needs most together."
Thank you so much, Chloe. Now, we will see a beautiful art slideshow in honor of MLK put together by Mrs. Moyer and Mrs. Vaz.
Wow, those were some really nice pieces, with an outstanding purpose behind each of them, truly creative. We now get to hear from our beloved staff. Firstly, we will begin with Mrs. Roth, our Media Center Secretary.
Hello, thanks for having me today. I've been asked to discuss my community service with Covenant House Detroit with you today. Covenant House is a national organization that assists homeless youth aged 18 to 26. These young adults have been abandoned, abused, trafficked, and neglected. I have volunteered with Covenant House for over 7 years. I've had many roles there. I'm a mentor, collecting donations, worked in the store, the employment center, and I've participated every year in all their fundraising events. Not only do they help everyone with any immediate need, the residents can stay there for up to 2 years as long as they're in school and working. Some of you might remember that last year I participated in my first annual Sleep Out. It's the executive edition, so I had to commit to raising $5,000. And thanks to many of you, I raised $5,200. I slept outside in a box with about 50 other people in hopes to raise awareness and money for this forgotten population. This year, I again did it, and I participated in my second annual. And though it was virtual and I slept alone in 2 taped together boxes on my back patio, this experience in some ways was more impactful and real, I think, being alone. I only raised about $300, but the connection with the other Covenant sleepers all around the world online was amazing. I almost didn't do it this year because with the pandemic, I thought maybe it was okay to be a little selfish. I felt uncomfortable to ask people for money, but something deep inside was not going to allow me to ignore the event and these homeless youth. People have asked me why I do care and why I do it. I care because I can't ignore the terrible things happening to these young adults, especially since I've been so fortunate. Sorry. I do it because even though it is often uncomfortable, I know it is the right thing to do. We are all connected, and hopefully I make a slight difference. Dr. King says that everyone can be great because everyone can serve. And I encourage you all to believe that, and we all have something to offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your service, and it's powerful. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. DeWald, a teacher and our Maples football coach.
Thanks, Trinity. When it comes to sports, I think they do a really good job of giving light and substance to diversity, equality, and social justice. Going back to 1968, we had members of our U.S. Olympic team, upon receiving their medals, literally stood on their platform. During that time, they stood up and signaled to the world their fight against racism here in America. Muhammad Ali, not only known as the GOAT of boxing, was also well known as a social activist. Moving forward, Colin Kaepernick in 2016 lost his job in the NFL for his fight for social justice while kneeling for the national anthem. This last summer, both the NBA and the WNBA teams put on their court front and center, Black Lives Matter. So when you watch a game, you see that message. And during those games, the players for both leagues also use their jerseys as a billboard with messages that supported the Black Lives Matter movement. To furthermore this, the women of basketball were the trailblazers. The WNBA were actually the first to put the Black Lives Matter on their warm-up shirts. Some of them even got fined doing it that early. So they were the trailblazers in this. LeBron James, maybe the world's greatest athlete or known to be the world's greatest athlete, he uses his status every day via social media to fight for social justice. Not only does he use social media, but he also donates millions of dollars and a lot of his time to foundations that he believes fight for equality for the youth in America. Now, these athletes know they can't do it all themselves, but they're trying to do their part. So these messages, social justice, Black Lives Matter, diversity, equality are at the forefront of our mind here in America. Now, what is our job as a non-athlete or someone that doesn't have this status? We need to take this ball from these athletes and run with it. And when I say run with it, have the conversations. We have these conversations in our classroom, in our locker room, at work, at home, in your social circle. These can be powerful conversations. Last year, I watched Miss Feliciano talk about between your head and your heart is your mouth, and then use your voice to have these tough conversations. And when we have these tough conversations, we find out that we all have common ground, more common ground than less common ground. And when we have this mindset, then we can go from it's not a they problem or us problem, it's an our problem. And when it becomes an our problem, we then can take the sports world and come together as a team and use it as an acronym. Together, everyone achieves more.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeWald. And last but not least, we have Dr. Wilhelm, Seaholm's Math Department Chair.
Thank you, Trinity, and hello, Seaholm. I'm honored to be here today, helping to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King. Race can be one of the most difficult topics to discuss in our society. Like many of you, I grew up in a predominantly white community. When I was younger, I didn't question the story of America that I learned in school or saw portrayed in the media. I certainly had no way of understanding how profoundly differently Black people experienced life in the US compared to how I presumed things worked for everybody. Over the years, though, it's become clear to me that the American experience is far from universal, and many of its inequities are rooted in race. The events of the past year have made racial disparities more apparent than ever, and have challenged us all to examine bias and discrimination in our institutions. I urge all of you to learn as much as you can. Take an active role in choosing what you read and watch. Get to know people who have different opinions. Don't passively accept whatever content social media algorithms push to you. To learn and grow, you need to challenge your beliefs. Think deeply about where those beliefs came from and seek diverse perspectives. You are not merely a product of your environment. You determine the kind of person you will become. I want to leave you today with two quotes to consider, one from James Baldwin and the other from Angela Davis. If you aren't familiar with the work of these individuals, I encourage you to learn more about them. These quotes highlight the importance of learning through reflection. You need to figure out what's important in life and use that to decide what you're willing to fight for. James Baldwin once observed, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." Angela Davis emphasized the necessity of activism in reshaping our world when she famously said, "I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept." These quotes from two Black luminaries resonate with me. I hope they spark some curiosity and action in you. Thank you for your attention this morning.
Wow, thank you so much, Mrs. Roth, Mr. DeWald, and Dr. Wilhelm. It was amazing to hear from all of you. So, we all know about Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech that he delivered at the Lincoln Memorial and how it influenced so much positive change. But now we will hear from our own Seaholm staff and students, and they will share with us their dreams for Seaholm. First, we have Mrs. Canfield.
Thank you, Jada. Hello, everyone. In honor of this special day, several staff and students will share their own personal dreams for our community. In the following segment, your peers, your teachers, and your coaches will tell you of their hopes for the future of Seaholm High School.
Hello, I'm Maeve Everett. I'm a senior, and I have a dream for Seaholm that spans from the words of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. King once stated, "You will change your mind, you will change your looks, you will change your smile, laugh, and ways. But no matter what you change, you will always be you." My dream for Seaholm is for it to be a school full of those who understand the words of King. The idea that although you can dress a certain way or follow a certain crowd, at the end of the day, you are who you are. Instead of hiding it, you should embrace it. Be true to yourself.
Hi, my name is Kiona Katinsky, and I am a freshman. I too have a dream for Seaholm that our 2021 yearbook is filled with pictures of togetherness, pictures which signify that we beat COVID. I also have a dream for Seaholm that 2021 will bring a new era of gratitude for those people and things we once took for granted.
Hi, I'm Samantha Canfield, and I teach English and leadership at Seaholm. I too have a dream that at Seaholm High School, all students and staff feel safe, included, and valued for their unique selves. I dream that every person at our school feels a sense of belonging and that our doors feel welcoming, inclusive, and comforting each and every day.
Hi, I'm Rachel Shafu, and I teach 9th, 10th, and 11th grade English. I too have a dream for their cultural, religious, or community's identity, that students can grow here in their ideas and their mindset by hearing and listening to others' perspectives, while maintaining true to who they are and what they believe. And ultimately, I dream that every person at Seaholm feels a sense of love and respect from all of those around them.
I'm Max Angel, a sophomore, and I have a dream that at Seaholm High School we could uphold not only the justice which MLK represents, but create our own powerful environment of equity. I hope that we will never again look at others around us, or even our friends, as being defined by their race or appearance. I dream that we will maintain an atmosphere of not just acceptance, but outright ignorance of each other's appearances. Physical looks should never define a person, and because of this, should not create biases. This lack of partiality is my dream.
Hi, Seaholm. I'm Mrs. Feliciano, and I teach mathematics. I, too, have a dream that Seaholm will be a school where each person is given every opportunity to thrive while here and in their future endeavors. A place where differences will be acknowledged and celebrated in authentic and meaningful ways. A place where you can be the best you, and I can be the best me.
Hi, I'm Mina Badwar. I'm a junior, and I too have a dream for Seaholm that everyone's character contributes to a positive community and that everyone becomes more empathetic as a whole. Also for Seaholm to make each and every individual feel accepted and loved for who they are no matter what.
Hi, my name is Jonah Sania and I am a sophomore. I too have a dream for Seaholm High School, that it can be a place where people are able to express themselves in a way that makes them happy, without fear of hate or judgment. That it can be a place where each individual's differences are celebrated rather than scrutinized. And that it can be a place where everyone is treated equally, where judgments are formed based on the content of people's character and not the predetermined labels they identify with.
Hello, Maples. My name's Steve Clare. I teach science. I too have a dream for Seaholm, a place where failures are celebrated alongside the successes, a place where others pick people up when they fall down, a place where the absence of fear and embarrassment fuel the motivation to be extraordinary human beings, a place where we can one day get back to hugs and high fives because I sorely miss them because they're my jam.
Hi, my name is Sarah Taub and I'm a senior. I too have a dream that Seaholm High School will create a positive environment that encourages students, staff, and teachers of all identities and backgrounds to reach their fullest potential inside and outside of the classroom while upholding the standards of the Maple community each and every day.
Hi, I'm Cam Murray. I'm a junior, and I too have a dream that Seaholm High School will be an accepting and welcoming place to all individuals in the building, no matter your physical appearance or activities that interest you.
Hi, my name is Vanessa and I'm a senior here at Seaholm. I too have a dream for Seaholm, that we will all value one another, not based on our looks, the clothes we wear, or the car we drive, but instead who we are internally. That one day, we will no longer have to question ourselves of our worth, but instead we will know exactly how special, important, and unique we all are.
Hey, Seaholm, this is Mr. Seabour. I teach band here, and I had a dream ready to go for you, but I'm so inspired by a couple of things I heard today. I'm changing it up. First thing, Chloe McKenna talked earlier about safe spaces, and I really want to work and exist in a school that students, staff, faculty feel safe. We throw that word around, safety, but when a safe environment is fueled by compassion, like Chloe said, that's ideal. And that's a dream I have for Seaholm. The second dream that I have was mentioned by Dr. Wilhelm, talking about seeking diverse perspectives. I couldn't agree more with that. It's so easy to exist in an echo chamber where you're surrounded by people that share your belief system. I really want to encourage us all, myself included, to listen to other people that have different views than yourself, because I think that leads to understanding, which can lead to peace.
Hi, my name is Ms. Hart. I teach social studies, and I too have a dream for Seaholm, that someday there will be no others, that we will begin to see each other as citizens of the earth, respecting each individual's contributions and celebrating oneness.
Thank you, students and staff, for expressing your dreams and aspirations. And now we will hear from Mrs. Moulton, an English teacher speaking alongside Seaholm alumni.
Thank you, Trinity. It's always an honor and such a great joy to spend time with Maple alumni. And I got a chance to do so a couple of days ago. We had a conversation about diversity and about Martin Luther King and really about the lives that they have been leading since leaving Seaholm and how all of this just encompasses everything that they do every day. Basically, how they think with reflection, act with compassion, and perform with honor. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the MLK Assembly. I'm so excited to have this great panel of alumni with us today. Of course, we are virtual and we are safe. Oh, by the way, I'm Robin Moten. I'm a teacher in the English department here at Seaholm High School. And we're gonna get started and just spend a few minutes again with some really great people. I hope you enjoy it. So with us today, we have Michaela Rawls, who's a student at Wayne State University. We also have Nick Winkler, who is a student at the University of Michigan. We also have Nick Resnick, who is not a student anymore, is in the working world and living in New York City. And then finally, we have Erica Hart, who is also not a student in the working world and living in Portland, Oregon. So thank you, all of you, for joining us. And I'd like to start with a brief question, not necessarily about Martin Luther King, but about diversity and how you feel about diversity. So the question is, could you ponder the following statement? I used to think one way about diversity. Now I think this way about diversity. And you can read that however you want. So the first speaker that we're going to have talk about that question is Erica Hart. And Erica, you can also tell us a little bit about yourself and, while you are answering the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. As Ms. Moten Robin said, my name is Erica Hart. I'm living in Portland, Oregon, graduate of the New School and currently working in the somatic arts world. So looking at empathy and how we build that, not just as a mental tool, but also a physical embodied emotional tool. So that's what I'm doing. And your question, I used to think about diversity by looking at others and how they were different from me and people like me as sort of like the benchmark of comparison. And now I look at diversity as an intentional action of trying to decenter that white, cisgendered, heteronormative experience as the norm. So that's how I think about diversity now.
Say, Erica, if I could ask you a quick question, how
Sure.
you use some terms that some of us use all the time and others kind of roll their eyes, are like, oh my God, I don't even know. And they actually, some people feel a little guilty when they hear those terms. How did you learn those terms and how did you just kind of live into them?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. So it took a lot of super intentional focused work. My time at the New School was incredibly impactful in that way. A lot of liberal arts coursework around indigeneity, about performative race, about all those things, and being challenged by really incredible professors who, didn't just give me a pat on the back for being a really sweet white girl from the Midwest and trying my best, but challenged me. And so it took a lot of coming up against my own sort of reactions of like, oh, I'm trying, and yet no one's patting me on the back for trying, and just continuing to do that over and over and over again, and having supportive folks in that. So that's what's been my journey with it.
All right, that's amazing. Thank you so much. That's a great answer. I think the next person that's going to tackle this question is Nick Winkler. And if you hear me refer to him as Wink, it's because that was his nickname throughout high school, and that's what I'm used to. So Wink, tell us about life at U of M and a little bit about yourself and how you feel about diversity.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Nick Winkler. I graduated from Seaholm in 2019. Right now I'm at University of Michigan studying business and minoring in community action and social change. For me, something that I used to think about diversity was that it was almost, I guess, one-dimensional, and that it was really surrounded by like race and ethnicity. And I've learned now that it goes so much further than that, with age, spirituality, gender, ability, all of these different things that can expand over diversity. And it's just much more holistic than just, I guess, your color.
Okay. And Nick, you mentioned your minor, which I love the fact that you're minoring in something that's community action oriented. Much like Erica, did you not know some of the terms or not think through some of these things when you first went to college, and then those classes challenged you?
Definitely. I learned a lot, especially about gender norms and gender identity. Just learning that just experiencing other people who are going through these things and actually I'm experiencing diversity that I haven't experienced before, and it's been very educational for me.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, dear. And next up we have Nick Resnick, who's not at Ross anymore, but was a while ago. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nick number 2, and maybe give us some words of wisdom about diversity.
Yeah, so I, after at Seaholm being pretty interdisciplinary between the arts and more technical things like math and stats, once I got to college, went heavy on the technical side, was Ross and math majors. And after college have been working as a data scientist, pretty much coding day in, day out. So what's interesting is I sort of have a combination answer in terms of what I used to think of diversity from Erica and Wink, which is I thought it wasn't just diversity, it was racial diversity, was sort of the term, almost always how I used it. But also as a Jewish guy in a predominantly Christian high school, I also used that, the feeling like an other at times, and thought of diversity that way through my own experience. And not only from people that I met in Michigan, but especially being in New York City, which is just an incredibly diverse city. I think the most diverse city I've ever been to throughout the world, and one that if you walk down the street, you will almost always hear a language that isn't English. And so that has been my biggest, I think, lesson, is that diversity is, especially in New York City, you see a lot of wealth disparity. You see a lot of different languages, and you see basically that you can draw these lines between people, or these Venn diagrams that are so overlapping in terms of wealth, race, religion, sexual preferences, gender identity. And but really what I learned more than anything after drawing all these lines is that there's always so much more that connects us and that we have in common than what we have different.
That's an amazing answer. I don't even have a follow-up question to that. That was so good. But of course, it's Nick Resnick, so I expect nothing less. And then finally, at least on this question, we have Michaela Rawls. And Michaela, what did you think about diversity in the past versus maybe what you think now that you are coming into your own and into adulthood?
Kind of like what Wink and Nick and Erica said, I used to think that diversity was exclusively about race, but now I know that diversity includes a lot of things: gender, age, sexual orientation, culture. And I believe my first year at school, I specifically focused on diversity when it came down to gender and sexual orientation. And I looked at it through my women in politics class and a Black female and male relationships class that I took. They really focused on gender when it came down to politics, and the Black relationships class focused on sexual orientation and how it affected the Black relationship later down the line. And then just to give you guys a little bit of background, I go to Wayne State and I am a double major in political science and African American studies.
Well, that sounds like a perfect major for you, Michaela, and especially since those are the classes that got you rolling during your first year. So thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of your answers. And now for our last question, I want you to broaden it out just a little bit. Since you are all, you are kind of the definition of diversity, right? You're in very different cities and you're doing very different things with your life. What would you say is the main takeaway that you've had as you graduated from Seaholm, started living your life? What life lessons have you learned? Like what's important to you? And I think for this round, I'm going to start with Wink.
Yeah, so for me, I would say that I've realized how important diversity is since leaving Seaholm, just with meeting people from all over the country and all over the world, just like meeting people from different walks of life. It's been really like nice for me to just learn from them and form these new relationships and learn things that I otherwise never would have had the opportunity to learn. Some things that I couldn't learn in a classroom necessarily.
Okay. That's a really good point. Since we've been talking so much about classes that have been taken, there are other lessons to be learned out there. So thank you, Wink. I appreciate that. And next, we're going to go back to Michaela. Michaela, what would you say that you have taken away, and how you're navigating sort of the big bad world as we talked about before?
I think the world outside of the Birmingham bubble is very diverse, and I want students to realize that you're going to encounter a lot of people, but when you encounter them, just to treat them with respect. And then lastly, I just want to say, like, appreciate the friendships that you make with like students and teachers along the way while you're in Seaholm, and realize that helps you build better friendships and relationships when you leave Seaholm also.
Sounds good to me. Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate you. And now we come to the elder statesmen and women of the room. She says, as she's like the middle-aged woman in the room. Nick Resnick, what would you say have been the life lessons maybe that you've learned, taken away from Seaholm as you've been navigating your space and your place in this world?
Yeah, I actually have like two very specific ones that come from a lot of the work that I did with you, as well as some of my classmates around diversity and kind of starting a conversation between people of different backgrounds. And so the first one, I wrote these down. First one is just like the power of talking to people that aren't like you. Like when if you're in echo chambers where you don't get a lot of viewpoints of people that disagree, there isn't a lot of room for growth there. Like you're just going to kind of double down on things that you already believe. But just getting two people in a room and that might have different, I don't know, religious, political, whatever backgrounds or ideas, you see, oh my God, like, again, sort of what I said earlier, like there's actually so much more that we have in common. We have similar interests. There's so many things, and people leave that room much closer and just with a much better idea of like where the other person is coming from. So power of just like straight up conversation. And the other one, this is a really cheesy, I want to think of a better way to frame it, but we had this phrase that we use, which is it's cool to care, which makes me cringe just saying it, but it is true. Like, I think there's a general, it's very easy to be kind of apathetic and just, I think we celebrate not only in high school, but through college and even as an adult, like just being chill, like not really caring that much, like, yeah, it's cool, like no worries. But it is cool to like give a crap about like bad things that are happening in the world and doing something about it and being vocal. And I think we should, celebrate people who care about things and are very kind of passionate about it.
Okay, stop trying to make me cry. That's a great answer, and much love for that answer. And finally, one, Miss Erica Hart, how are you living in the big bad world? What are you doing? How do you navigate this? What can you tell the kids?
Well, I just wanted to say that everyone's answers were so differing, but also came back to these like core essentials. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot just in my own space and how I move through the world and bring that into my work is living in the richness of the world. You know, the Birmingham bubble has set you up for a lot of great opportunities, but the work really starts when you step out of that, when you step out of your comfort zone, when you step out of a community that looks and sounds and believes all the same things you do. And so the more you can lean into discomfort as your teacher, the better and richer your life and what you can learn and where you can go in this world and have impact can be. So really leaning into discomfort as teacher, I think, like Nick was just saying, having this sort of feeling of it's whatever is something we see all the time and we hear all the time, but getting your stakes, getting invested and getting riled up about things is important. And then coming, like Wink and Michaela were saying, being in relationship with people, all sorts of people, and being in relationships that challenge you and challenge your ideals. Those are the kinds of friendships, mentorships, relationships that you really want to foster and invest in, because they're going to make you a better person and a more effective citizen. So just lean into that discomfort and really challenge yourself to build relationships that keep pushing you towards a deeper understanding of things that maybe you never thought about before. So that's what's been working for me anyway.
Wow, that was incredible. It really was, guys, just hearing you guys talk about this and how much you've grown over the years. I complain about being a middle-aged lady, but what's great about being middle-aged? I get to see this and I get to see the result of the work of so many people. And I also am hopeful about what you're going to bring to the world. As I leave this earth, I certainly can say, or get ready to, I certainly can say that it's left in great hands. And so I thank you. Can't thank you enough, and can't thank you enough for doing this today. You were awesome. I know that folks really enjoyed you. So thanks. Have a wonderful afternoon, and thanks to everyone watching, and keep watching the MLK Assembly.
Wow, thank you so much, Ms. Moten, and thank you to all of the Seaholm alumni that were on the panel, learned in school and in the world. So now, sadly, this year's MLK Assembly is coming to an end. We've heard from many Seaholm students and staff, all of their powerful messages regarding the current state of the world and even their dreams for our school's future. We have this assembly to celebrate Martin Luther King, to inspire and uplift everyone despite what's going on in the world, and lastly, to promote equity and unity within the community at Seaholm.
Thank you, Maples, and we hope you enjoyed 2021's MLK Assembly and continue to stay aware and spread awareness. Both individually and as a community, we have all experienced our adversities. Nevertheless, our determination and unity allowed us to push through and persevere through our difficulties. And remember, through our hearts, school, and the world, it's important to know what's going on.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Oh, Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. War is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Oh, picking lives and picking sides. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see, oh, what's going on? What's going on? Ooh, what's going on? What's going on? Father, 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 everybody thinks we're wrong. Oh, who are they to judge us just because our hair is long? You know we've got to fight.